All right, this is a Zoom. This is actually not live, but this is still your guys from MetalAsylum.net and the Metal Hall of Fame. You know me, Jack Mangan. I've got an Opeth shirt on today, if that matters. You also know me from Am I Evil, the graphic novel, which is in process. But yeah, we are going to kick. Walls are going to break. Who's my partner over there from New Jersey?
What's happening? What's up, guys? Rich Catino from Metal Asylum as well, and Brave Words Magazine and the Metal Hall of Fame, and Sea of Tranquility once in a while I contribute to. And we are joined by, welcome, Mr. Neil Turbin.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Jack. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be on with you guys, and great work that you're both doing, and of course the Metal Hall of Fame, and looking forward to your novel, Jack, and both of you guys are definitely on my radar screen, so it's cool to have a chance to finally do an interview with you, since you know that I'm doing interviews with Jimmy K and the Metal Voice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, big shout out to Jimmy K, who I've said it many times, but we would not be here if not for the Metal Voice and them blazing the trail. And so big props to you and to Jimmy K for all that you do over there.
Well, thank you. And Jimmy's just an amazing person, amazing individual who's done so many amazing and incredible things for the music scene, for the metal scene. I mean, what he did, for Lee Kerslake of Uriah Heep, and of course Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy's band, and helping to kind of make that happen. He and Pat Gesualdo. I mean, that was an incredible moment to witness that in person when Lee Kerslake came out to the Metal Hall of Fame and was given his platinum albums for the first two Blizzard of Oz albums that he did, so many years ago in the early 80s. And, of course, Lee was not in his top shape at that moment, but he was able to make it out to California, and he was able to accept the award, and it was so cool to witness that. And I was side stage just at that particular moment, and I happened to bump into John Sykes, who's giving him the award on stage. He was announcing it. So I was like, hey, John, it's funny to meet you back here again. It's just cool. And I'm a big fan of John Sykes and Thin Lizzy and Blue Murder and, John Sykes solo, and, of course, Whitesnake. And, it was like, holy cow, just all the people you run into. It's just like a whirlwind that happens when, especially during the last physical NAMM that occurred in California. That was in 2020. And I was just blown away by in 2019. So I might be mixing up two of them with some of the things that happen at both of them, because it's just such a whirlwind. You go to NAMM and you meet so many people, and you're just trying to keep up with conversations and old friendships and new friendships and, new people you meet. And the Metal Hall of Fame is just a phenomenal event for the music industry, as well as definitely for heavy metal and for hard music. And it's just, I would say it's an essential event and institution that, in my opinion, it replaces the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because I don't even know what the Rock Hall is. What is it? You guys know? I mean,
yeah, it's all over the map, right?
I don't know who plays rock and roll that's in there except for Tina Turner, and I guess the Foo Fighters. But I mean, you put them in before Judas Priest, Motorhead, Iron Maiden. They were all on the ballots before. Right. How come they're not in there? And who are the Foo Fighters listening to? I mean, I'm just saying. I guess everything's just not fair in love and war.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and sure, we know that there's sometimes there are difficulties here and there. The Metal Hall actually has seen that before. There's some obvious artists who we're working on, and this really well. This maybe even better than us. There's sometimes there are difficulties, but that's not me sticking up for the Rock Hall. I don't. They need to explain what they're doing over there. But that's not why we didn't have you on just to trash the Rock Hall.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I do that?
No, you didn't. We're kind of doing it right now. No, it's all good.
Well, it's just like, who's voting for him? Who they got? Who the people? Who are these people voting for him? Like who? How do you qualify? Like, how do we get on the board so we can vote? Like, they need some heavy metal people, obviously. I mean, at least pick rock and roll. I mean, you call it the Rock Hall. They didn't call it the Disco Hall. It was not called the Rap Hall. It's not called the EDM hall. It's called the Rock Hall. So I think they should stick to what they're supposed to do according to their own sanction of their, I don't know, what is their mission statement? Who's selling the most records this month? I mean, who's got the most downloads on airplanes? I mean, you know, what, who sells the most singles during COVID? I mean, what's the gauge that you go by?
Yeah, it's a good question. These are all good questions. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we have the Metal Hall, so you know that is something for. I mean, Dee Snider even spoke out, you know, in favor of the Metal Hall in the wake of the last snub for Iron Maiden this year. So yeah, Metal Hall is an essential. I agree with everything you said. Metal Hall of Fame is.
Screw it. Just vote for Hannah fucking Montana, you know, or fucking Barney or something. You know, make them the fucking kings.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when you have little ones, you get a lot of Barney.
The Blue Smurf. You seen Jimmy Smurf? They should vote the Smurf into the Metal Hall. Not the Metal Hall. Well, he could be in the Metal Hall. They should vote him in the Rock Hall.
Yeah, rest in peace, Jimmy Smurf. Yeah. But so you know, we've seen you recently. Actually, you know, the world has seen you recently. I know you turned up a little bit in the Anthrax 40th anniversary videos. You know, just talking about Fistful in the early days.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I got contacted by, you know, the PR company and the management company of Anthrax, and they said they wanted me to participate in Anthrax's 40th anniversary. And I thought, okay, you know, sure, why not? I mean, I just went in with good faith and, you know, just told stories. And I actually was speaking with I chatted first with their manager, and then I was working with their filming producer. It's really, he's really a guy that directs films, you know, but he's doing video work and editing and all that, Jack Bennett. And, you know, we spent a good 2 hours plus talking about some deep stories that happened during Fistful of Metal, maybe before and during the tour, as well as during the recording process. So I had quite a few stories I told, and I was kind of hoping to see some stories, but I saw, I think, 1 or 2 stories. So I've got some stories, just in case you guys need some stories.
Yeah, well, hopefully those will see the light of day. Yeah, for sure.
But who knows what they're doing with it? You know, we don't know what happens at the end of the rainbow when they get to July and, you know, they do all their episodes, and I'm sure there's some type of offering that they'll have. Because YouTube is, I don't know, you get some hits on there and you might monetize it, but I think, you know, when you have something as cool as a documentary about a band's 40th anniversary, I think there's definitely some things you'd want to put out there for the fans, I would think.
Agreed. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, you know, I know we got a bunch of questions. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on nowadays. I don't know, you want to touch on, tell us. Yeah, actually, you know, we talked a little bit, just for you guys watching, we talked a little bit before we got started, and you're the busiest man in show business, I think. You know, you've got a lot going on.
I don't know. That's James Brown, and he's not with us anymore, but he was pretty busy and hardest working man in show business. But I wouldn't say that I'm the busiest man in show business. I would say that there's a lot of people that are very busy and in demand, and, you know, I'm just out there playing music because that's what my passion is. B.B. King said to me, from here to here, and that's what it is. If you can lift people up, then that's the reward. You know, for me, if I have the opportunity to lift people up with my music, whether it be, you know, singing thrash or singing, you know, heavy rock, progressive rock, or, you know, soulful rock and soul, or blues, or whatever it may be, or just, you know, like AOR hard rock. I mean, I sing those things, and, you know, I love to do it, and having the opportunity and the opportunity to lift someone up. But, you know, I don't need the focus of attention. I don't need to get a pat on the back. You know, I don't do it for any of those reasons. But yeah, you know, if it's going well, you know, yeah, you certainly want to accept a compliment, and you certainly want to appreciate people that appreciate you, and appreciate them back, and appreciate other talented artists. You know, I like to see other artists and, you know, attain their glory, or attain things in their careers. And, you know, one of the things I do, guys, is I'm a vocal coach, and I teach a master vocal session program that I teach with, advanced singers as well as beginners, as well as intermediate singers. And, for me, it's like when I can do a single lesson, a single session with a vocalist and, have them come back to me and say, wow, like I've been going to lessons for years and I'm doing all these scales and all these drills. But what you taught me in one time is like changed my perspective or my perception of what I'm doing and how I'm doing what I'm doing and things like that. So to me, it's about helping other people. And if you can see the results, that's a very rewarding thing to bring that value, into other people's lives. And, it's not just about the I word or the me word or anything like that, and some people like those words a lot, but that's just not where I'm coming from. It's about us.
Is this something you were able to do in 2020 during the pandemic, or you've started up doing that now in 21?
Well, thanks for asking. Yes, I did it. It's been going on since 2020. It's something I had planned out for a while to do it, and just needed the right, the right launching pad to do it. Having a website, vocalfirepower.com, and doing it, remotely. I do it like we're doing now through Zoom calls, and I can do it in person as well. I have no trepidation or fear factor about, working with people in person, but just from a geographical, a time logistics standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, it's a lot easier to do it online. Also, people can sometimes be shy or, shy about their singing or, development and such. But also, they're in a comfortable place. They're in their own environment, so they can sing there and feel less shy. And, it's a great opportunity because we can also record it with Zoom, which is a really nice thing to be able to review. Because really, when you're going into a classroom setting or you're going into a study environment, to walk away and be able to refer back to your notes, it's like you can have a notepad full of notes. But to actually have the video footage and to be able to reference that and look back and say, oh, yeah, I want to work on this particular thing here. And also, one of the things that I like to promote, I consider, Michael Jordan to be someone who, has a spirit of excellence. And what I mean by that is, we all know that Michael Jordan was a highly awarded, highly, competitive, highly successful player in all sports. I mean, he's not just, his name goes throughout all the sports. I mean, he's just that kind of superstar of a sports performer, high performance. But for him to enter the playoffs and to win the playoffs, but to do it when he had the flu and to do it when his body was, he just had the ability, the superior, spirit of excellence. He just rose above. He pushed himself to that place. But I mean, for people who have that spirit of excellence, that they don't have to be like Michael Jordan, but, if that's just, they really are into it. They really practice. They really want to push themselves. I think that bass players, guitar players, drummers, keyboard players, saxophone players, harp players, harmonica, whatever it is that a person plays, you become more like Michael Jordan when you can play baseball and basketball and you got multiple sports. When you can sing and play your instrument, the question people should ask is not, why is this person such a great bass player? But look at Geddy Lee. He's singing lead for Rush and playing bass. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility, and that's an MVP. Gary Moore. I mean, I can't teach people how to play like Gary Moore because that's just, I wish I could do that. That's amazing. He's a prodigy, a phenomenon. But the way that he sings, that I can teach. But, Gary Moore just had it. He was one of those kind of prodigies. But so there's an element of a prodigy that you really can't teach. And we know that there's some players that have that. But that makes everybody who's not a prodigy have to work that much harder to get there, to catch up to that level and to keep it there. And the prodigies who are already at that level, they have to keep it up too. They have to, they have to work their craft. And so having multi-instruments, being able to play, that's what drove me to play guitar. And I'm not the world's greatest guitar player, but to support my vocals, and I think that's an important thing. But I think that, you become an MVP when you can, the singer can't make it to the gig. I know that there was a gig out in Pasadena where Jack Russell couldn't make it to his own gig for some reason. I'm not sure, but they had someone else do the gig. Now, wouldn't it be cool if the bass player could do the gig, or the drummer, or the guitar player could do that gig? Well, I say train for it now. And I'm not talking about Great White or Jack Russell's Great White. I'm talking about just in general, like train for that gig, because there's been times where your singer is just not, in the best situation for whatever reason. It's just, and maybe learn how to play bass, because maybe it's the bass player that needs to, maybe that's a position that needs to be covered. So I just think that's my philosophy of part of my philosophy in terms of trying to cover those bases. And I think it's something that you're never going to hear in music class, maybe at Berkeley or something, or Juilliard, they might think that way. But I think they're looking to be experts in their field. They're not looking to be, masters, jacks of all trades. But I think, having that MVP kind of direction, and, there's a lot of people that are pretty phenomenal singers out there, but taking them to that next level, how do you take it to the next level? How do you surpass that level? I think it's about perfect practice makes perfect, not just practice, because you can do drills of the wrong exercises and drill it right into the ground and learn how to do things incorrectly. And there's a lot of bad behaviors out there. And what I try to do is help and reinforce the right behaviors. And, some of that is from, music theory and from prim and proper, training, but also a portion of that is from, busting your knuckles out on the road, and bleeding and spitting up blood. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with being sick, waking up and feeling like you're in a pool of broken glass or something? You wake up and you feel like, oh my God, my throat feels like this. I'm supposed to sing tonight at a show and people are showing up. Okay. Well, how do you deal with that? Now, and those are the kind of things that are the real world scenarios that we really want to embrace and try to think about, because then when something like that happens, then you're ready. Then you have some preparedness, thinking ahead. So I think it's pretty cool. So that's what I'm doing. Vocalfirepower.com. That's one of the things. Sorry for the long intro to that.
No, excellent. So vocalfirepower.com. Yeah.
Yes, I'll do one-on-one sessions with up and coming singers, aspiring singers, people that are in the theater or in acting that want to develop their voice, people that are already world-class singers that want to, take it to the next level, because there is a next level. Unless Stevie Wonder goes like this, then, there's a next level. Unless Rob Halford says, hey, man, I can't hit the notes you're hitting, or I can't sing like that, then there's the next level. But I don't think that those are levels where, it's hard to get to. Very hard. And you have to have a natural ability, and then you have to, really adapt and take it to that next place. But it's possible for some people.
I do love that you call out Stevie Wonder and Rob Halford right side by side. That's awesome. Two legends in their own right. So
we don't want to leave out Whitney Houston. I mean, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, talent off the charts. But so yeah, and you've been a guest star, right? You've made some really cool guest appearances on some of the recordings over the past few years. I don't know if you wanted to touch on any of those.
Yeah, I actually I'll just mention one thing, because I mentioned Whitney Houston. I'm not trying to talk about non-rock music or pop music.
That's all good.
I actually did an Aretha Franklin tribute, and I was the only male singer. And of course, we're talking about Aretha Franklin, so it's serious stuff. But because she recorded Otis Redding, so I did some Otis songs that she did. But it was an honor for me, because I was singing with these phenomenal singers who were just incredible. And it was, like, if you're not authentic, then get out of town. People, not only will they throw stuff, they'll laugh you out of Dodge, But I think it's just, what you have a passion for. For me, it's a passion as well. Rock and roll, heavy metal, thrash music. That's part of my passion. I've also come up on oldies, classics, rock, soul music, progressive. I like to sing Steve Walsh, Kansas music. That's, the progressive stuff, the deep cuts. Don't ask me why. I just love it. It's out of those bands like Foreigner and Journey and Boston. Love Boston, but the Kansas, I love Steve Walsh's voice, and also Ronnie Platt, amazing singer for Kansas, and just being able to sing like that to me is like, okay, this is what I love to do. And people probably don't even have any idea about that. But actually, Kansas vocals, there's a lot of soulfulness in them. Some of these classic rock singers, I mean, there's some of these singers are really, really soulful. So there's a connection between the blues, the blues influence, and of course you have the classical influence or the neoclassical influence, bands like Rainbow or Deep Purple. So it's a kind of a bridging the gap. There's the blues, and then there's the R&B, or the R&B and the blues, and then the classical, and where that rubber meets the road, right? That intersection. And to me, that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of have both of those directions. It's not something that I thought that I was so cool or something, and I'm going to do both of these things. It kind of happened in 1985. After I left Anthrax, and I found myself at Green Street Studios with Rod Goldfinger-Wee, who was the engineer for the band Riot. And I was actually auditioning for Riot, and I was like, man, I hope they're going to give me a Fire Down Under song. And I'm ready for it. And what I was not ready for was Rhett Forrester songs, because he was more of a Paul Rodgers type, R&B influenced singer. And that's exactly what they hit me up with. And had I been prepared for that, it would have been, a dream come true. But it was the opposite. It was like, here I am trying to sing Restless Breed in the studio. And it's like, that's just, I love Thin Lizzy. In fact, I gave Rhett Forrester, when I used to hang out with him back in Jackson Heights in Astoria, Queens, I gave him a copy of his performance when he did it at my father's place. And I also gave him a copy of, lost my train of thought. I also gave him a copy of the other band, and I was just, of Thin Lizzy. I had some recording of actually it was that, and I had something of Thin Lizzy I was sharing with Rhett, but he loved all that soulful stuff, all the Paul Rodgers stuff. So I had something that and who would think, the guy from Anthrax is liking the soulful singing, but, I always loved it. I mean, that's what they played on the radio. I wasn't like some super rich dude that had all this money to buy all these expensive albums. All the albums I bought were the heavy metal ones. But, this is what they played on the radio. It was a cross between, when you're growing up, between Led Zeppelin and the Jackson 5, and everything in between, from the Stones, the Beatles, the Who, Kiss, all the local bands in New York at the time, Twisted Sister, Rat Race Choir, White Tiger, Swift Kick, Steeplechase, all these bands. I don't know if Rich is familiar with those bands from back east.
Yep. A few. Yep.
All the bands from the circuit back in the 80s, even the 70s. And they owned it, and these bands weren't tribute bands. They were cover bands. And it wasn't like they were dressing up like freaking Ronald McDonald trying to be, McDonald's. They were dressing up like rock and rollers, and they were singing cover songs, and they were great bands. And another story one story I have to throw out there that you'll probably be like, what the heck? There was this drummer that I was in a class with in high school. I know that people know I was in class with, some of the guys from Anthrax, but something to me that's even more fascinating than that is I was in a class with a drummer. His name was Larry Rudolph. Does that name ring a bell? You may have heard the name because he's actually the confidant and the attorney for Britney Spears, the one who broke her career. And this guy was such a phenomenal drummer. And this is like back in high school, and I was, 15 or 16 or might have even been 14. And I'm in a class with Larry Rudolph, and, I got an audition. I went to watch his band play, and he was playing drums. He was playing double bass drums back then. I don't know if he was 15 or 16 or what. And the guy is a, super sharp shooting attorney. I mean, big time. But he was such a great drummer. I'm like, man, I want to play with this guy on the drums. He was so good. And they were playing Thin Lizzy, Jailbreak, and they were playing, Montrose, I Got the Fire back then. And we're talking like 79 or something like that, 78. And I had just gotten a PA system from Grayson's Music, which is where they, I was there, and they had a Twisted Sister guitar pick I put in my pocket, because they gave it to me. And I'm like, yeah, just buy a PA system. You get a little guitar pick with that. But it was like, okay, they got a sponsorship there. So it was like, this is the place where you go, you know. So I saw this band play, and I'm like, they were so polished and such a great cover band back then. And it's a gig I didn't get, but I was like, wow, I really wanted to get that gig because that was such a killer heavy band back then. And then when I was still in that same age group, like I was still like beginning, you know, just beginning my singing career. I don't know if I could call myself professional back then. I was just trying, you know, I started auditioning for bands. I went on this audition, and it was in, I think it was in Brooklyn or somewhere in that direction. I was in Queens, living there. So I got in my car, ended up in Brooklyn, or like maybe someone drove me. I was pretty young. I don't think I was driving at that age. Somehow I got there. A friend probably drove me. And there was a guy named Frankie Carr band. Frankie Carr. So that name might not ring a bell, but believe me, he was quite a guitar player. He was playing like the USO tour, like the military. They had like this whole tour, and he had this drummer who was like this marching band drummer. And he wrote the song for the band Firefall. You Are the Woman. You are the woman that I've always dreamed of. That song.
Sure.
So he was a co-writer on that song. So here I am, a kid, green in the face, trying to sing, like trying to even figure out what am I going to do here to sing with the Frankie Carr band. And well, I was a little bit ahead of my time at that time, before my time, I should say, not ahead of it, but I was behind my time at that moment. And, but they were such a cool band, and another really phenomenal band from the East Coast, New York band. And like, there's a lot of these bands. Riot's another band like that, you know, just these phenomenal musicians. They were just, you know, these guys were ahead of my time. You know, they were older guys than me. And yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. So I walk into the studio, and they played Restless Breed, and it was like 0 degrees out. I'm going like this because it's so cold. So I drank coffee. I'm like pounding coffee. So if I wasn't going like this because it's just nerves, now the coffee's got me going like this. So I went to sing Restless Breed, and I'm trying to like hold my nerves down, like from losing, you know, just like why couldn't they give me Swords and Tequila, or, you know, Don't Hold Back, right? No Place to Hide, you know, or Altar of the King, but they gave me Restless Breed. So it's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just, you know, it wasn't what I was preparing myself for. So I think with vocalfirepower.com, you know, I understand this history and this stuff that I had to deal with, and I want to I want to give people the benefit of that knowledge and that experience to try to help them on auditions, especially when they're competing on television, or if they're, you know, trying to go to auditions to get acting jobs or singing jobs. I mean, there's a lot of competitive stuff, and it's like, how do you approach that stuff? So it's really something that's hard to learn. I don't know if you're going to learn that in some of these formal universities or places like that. You'll learn a good reinforcement of music theory and a great reinforcement of you know, protocol and practice. And of course, you know, sticking with those things will get you there. But there's other stuff that you learn that's, you know, you might learn it on the road. You might learn it from these auditions. And I just think that those kind of stories are the things that make it interesting, because I'm sure you guys didn't know about that, and only the few people I've told it to would know.
All right, cool. All right, cool. Yeah, all right, Rich, you have a direct question you want to throw out?
Yeah, you were telling us about a band that you had in the 80s called Wrecking Crew that you're working on re-recording or recording new songs with this band currently?
Yes. So Bobby Piper, he was a guitar player for XYZ, who co-wrote the song Souvenirs, and, you know, he played, I think he was playing with XYZ Revisited. They've done quite a number of performances. And I'm not sure if, I think Bobby might have played on stage with XYZ, you know, more recently in the last bunch of years at some events. And, you know, they're on good terms and stuff, which is cool. And so Bobby had a band. Actually, Bobby joined my band, Turbin, back in the 80s, because a guitar player left the band and we had a show at the Roxy. So Bobby joined my band, and that band kind of didn't stay together at that point. So Bobby and I were co-writing some songs, and he also had a band that he had with Joe Cristofanelli, who was the bass player for Rat at the time, you know, back early on. He co-wrote the song Wanted Man, and then and he's on the East Coast. That's where Bobby is now, in Connecticut or the East Coast. And then Joe Perfumi, who's a drummer. And Joe played with Walter Trout. I mean, he plays with some big tours, a lot of R&B blues type stuff and rock. And so they have, they've been recording, and they were recording some of the songs that we used to play. And it's like back from the 80s. So it's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool? Call Neil, they said. So they did. And hey, Neil, would you like to sing a song or two or be involved in this? So we don't have a name for it now yet, but we're working on that. But, the songs are just as good as they were back then. And I co-wrote a bunch of these songs. So there's basically an album worth of material. And a lot of it's been demoed. And some of it is just rough demos, but some of it's actually been recorded. So the cool thing is that, that's one of the things I'm working on is that band with Bobby Piper. And it's cool because it is something we did in the 80s, the late 80s, like 89, and then also in the 90s. So I look forward to getting that out there. I mean, I can't give you a date or anything like that, but I can say that, it's something that's in progress.
Still under the same name, or is it going to be a different name for the band?
I think we're going to have a different name for it, is my feeling. But, I'm not making decisions for everyone else. I just have my own thoughts and suggestion. Right. And what's cool is that this is a band of people that accept my thoughts and suggestions. They don't just shoot them down right out of the beginning, out of the gate, and I've had that experience. So, some bands are just really cool. Everybody, is an adult and they can accept different ideas, different opinions, say, hey, you know what? That's a really good idea. Hey, that's really, let me think about that one. Hey, that's not a good idea. People are reasonable, and this is a really cool band to write with. And at the time, it was crazy during that time frame. We were all working hard, trying to, make our way, and it just was tough. And Bobby ended up moving back to the East Coast at that time, around that time. So here's the opportunity for us to do something together. And it's really cool because they asked me, hey, Neil, would you like to sing on the whole album? I'm like, wow, how cool that is. And then also, while we're on that topic, I'm also working with a really great charitable organization called Music Matters. And Music Matters, they're involved with a number of big names. They have people like Matt Sorum and Gilby Clark and from GNR, and JMO from the Allman Brothers, and some other big names. They had actually I did a Zoom call, like a webinar type of that I participated in for their kids. They were doing some mentoring and coaching and kind of a demo, where everybody was playing, all the kids were playing, and everyone gets their chance, and it's about lifting these kids up and giving them insight and input and hearing what their feelings are and their experiences. And some of them are not kids, some of them are bigger kids, but it's a great mentorship program, and it's really super valuable in the music, in music. And I know Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp's a cool thing. It's like you go and you pay a lot of money, you end up if you get to sing with Rob Halford and Roger Daltrey, that's really cool, if that's possible. But not everybody's got not everybody can do that. But this Music Matters thing, with the kids, with the younger kids, and just being able to mentor them, and I really love that idea, and I embrace it wholeheartedly. And I was, I'm thrilled to be part of that. And so I was asked by the principal of Music Matters, John, who asked me, hey, Neil, what do you think of this song? And he sends me a song with some people on it. And I'm like, okay, cool. This sounds great. Who's on it? Oh, Steve Gadd. Yeah, he just won a Grammy this year. And, people like that. And then JMO from the Allman Brothers. And then he sends me another track. It's like, well, what do you think of this track? I'm like, sounds badass. And it's like Gilby Clark and Matt Sorum. I'm like, holy smokes, man. How much I'd love to sing on a track like that. It's got incredible music on it. And I'm like, yeah, this is up my alley. John Ingracia is the name of the principal for Music Matters. So I say, John, yeah, I'd love to sing on that track. He's got people already singing on it. And so he sends me a song. He's like, hey, Neil, here's a song, and I don't have any lyrics, or I don't have anyone singing on it. What do you think of this? I'm like, and I put it on, and it's kind of like got a Rolling Stones-ish kind of vibe, meets Tom Petty, meets Otis Redding. You know, it's just that kind of a vintage sound, like Vintage Trouble or something. It's just like, whoa, this is so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I'll start writing to it because I got a melody idea for it already. He says, yeah, who's playing on it? He says, well, you might know them as, well, he told me their names, Steve Ferrone and Beaumont Tench. He says, you might know them as the Heartbreakers, Tom Petty's band. Some of the members, not the whole band, but a couple of the members. I'm like, okay, wow, heavy. But it's like, you know, you wouldn't expect the guy who was a singer on Fistful of Metal to be doing that kind of stuff. But it's like, hey, you know, I cut my teeth with the hard and heavy and the super metal stuff, but also the classic rock, also the progressive rock, also, you know, the R&B and the soul. I mean, those are the singers I also like, you know, very much. And to understand those kind of singers, and also, you know, not just the R&B singers, but even, you know, like your Beatles and your Stones and that sort of thing. So it's just bringing that whole world in there and knowing where to go with it. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. And for me, it's like, I think the thing that I also do in Vocal Firepower, I'm just mentioning it again because it's like you got to take yourself out of that comfort zone. That's what happened when I auditioned for Riot in '85. They put me out of my comfort zone. I was ready to sing Fire Down Under, the screaming metal stuff, and they sent me in the Paul Rogers direction. So I never looked back. You know, I kept going down that road to know that I need to know how to do this the right way. And that was my mission, you know, is to embrace other styles. And I didn't stop there. You know, when you hear people like Chaka Khan singing, you know, John Coltrane licks on the saxophone and her vocal lines, it's like, well, yeah. And George Benson and jazz influenced music and some of that smooth jazz stuff, you know, all that Kenny G stuff. I mean, it might not be a typical heavy metal thing, but it's like, if you could sing all that scat singing, all that you know, sax lines or guitar lines, you know, there's what, Alice in Chains, Man in the Box, they're singing the guitar line, right? I mean, it's
right. So
it's about, you know, adapting and growing and expanding. And I think it brings a lot of value in heavy metal. And for me in heavy metal, I mean, the place that I see myself really is, you know, with a progressive, you know, power side and a thrash side. So it brings melodic intelligence to the thrash side because thrash is cool. And I know I was part of bringing thrash into the, you know, to become a genre. That was part of what I contributed to. But for me, it's always been about having something that you can walk away from and remember how the song goes and have a melody. And when you don't have melody, you just have riffs that don't really, it's like, it doesn't connect. It just kind of is a million different riffs. My job was to connect those riffs and to bring the melody together. So when I was a co-writer on Fistful of Metal and I came up with all of the song titles, all of the ideas for what the songs were about, what all of these arrangements were going to be, how they can fit it together. They weren't just like some riffs that maybe they fit, maybe they didn't. I couldn't do that in a rehearsal studio because it was so loud and there was no like, it wasn't a fellowship type of thing. It was like, hey, they're going to go in there and blast their amp as loud as they can and, you know, turn it up and, you know, get their guitar jollies out. I mean, yeah, I understand. And that's what bass players like to do and drummers too. You know, they want to go out there and play and get their aggressions out. And we would play these 2 sets every night or 3 sets. But we really didn't connect on the songwriting. Like they had an idea or they brought it into rehearsal, but it was really hard for me to kind of sit down and on the drum riser and try to write out lyrics. So I had to do that on my own. I had to take it back to my lab, you know, at home. I had to take it back to my home studio and go and at that time it wasn't a home studio. You know, it was my desk for school at home. So you know, because that's reality. So, but I learned how to, you know, write things that inspired me, like DeathRider, which was based upon Greek mythology, or Metal Thrashing Mad, which was, something that I was inspired by Biff Byford of Saxon, Freeway Mad, Motorcycle Man, Street Fighting Gang, Accept, Flash Rockin' Man, and Restless and Wild, Ahead of the Pack. I mean, it was all of that, the earlier Accept material. But these were bands that had that driving, rhythm, that driving feel. So I adapted, I related to that, and that was part of it's part of who I am. But that whole intensity and that whole, screaming, just wild, screaming mania, Metal Thrashing Mad. And I try to think of what theme, what words would kind of encapsulate, would embrace this feeling that I have. And I try to understand, what is the feeling of Metal Thrashing Mad at that time? And the feeling of Metal Thrashing Mad for me was playing Accept, or Saxon, or Riot, or Dio, or Iron Maiden, or Judas Priest in my old Buick with the windows rolled down and blasting it. But every speaker that I put into that car, I think there was like about 16 or 20 speakers in that thing. I put a speaker everywhere I could because I was doing some work and I was pulling out some stuff out of, doing some demolition work, and I'm, an old TV set. Oh, there's a big speaker. Let me get that one. Put it in the car. So I had all these speakers in addition to the car speakers. And my friend gave me a tape deck. I was able to get it from him or buy it or what have you. And so here I am playing my Saxon tape, and it's like, back then it was like, out the windows, and people are like, oh my God, sounds like an earthquake. What's going on? Sounds like a train hit a car hit the pole or something. It's like all this heavy metal. It's amazing. And that feeling to me, it's like bringing it to other people. It wasn't about trying to intrude into their life, but it was just like, hey man, heavy metal, everybody. So to me, that's what it was. And so Metal Thrashing Mad, that was kind of, I was stuck in this corner where, I have these guitar riffs. I couldn't just write like, hey, a Metal Thrashing Mad sing-along. There wasn't that kind of songwriting in Anthrax where, hey, let's sit down and really write an anthem, or let's really write something that people are going to sing. It wasn't like that. It was like, here, Neil, here's a riff. Here's another riff. Here's another riff. Okay, these riffs seem like they work together, and this is how we can go back to this other riff with the vocal melody. So it was really kind of hard, because trying to write and trying to have an opinion about whatever my opinion was, whether it wasn't about, hey, I think we should do things this way or that way. It was simply in the songwriting. And it was like always difficult to try to have any idea of anything, about anything, to move it forward. So I think it's a miracle, really, that I was able to, write those songs and come up with those ideas. And certainly, that's how DeathRider and Metal Thrashing Mad and Soldiers of Metal and those songs came about. And, there's influences for each one of them. And there's literary influences as well as, personal experience writing that I do, which is more so, I do a combination of different directions. There's not one formula. There's not one direction. I think you can, be adaptable and kind of adapt to the style. So that's the reason I explain this, is because that's how I can write to the Tom Petty guys and, John Ingrassia with Music Matters. That's how I can write to something like that. In fact, I was approached by Frankie Banali, who asked me to contribute to the last Quiet Riot album. So I was asked to co-write with Frankie Banali and with Neil Citron 2 songs for the Quiet Riot album. And the way it started off was like a shocker, and it was kind of rocky a little bit because, Glenn Hughes sang on the album before. the release that came out, I think one before or 2 before that, Glenn was the guest on that album. I'm like, oh boy, like, here we go. What is he going to expect of me? What's going to be expected? And fortunately, the first song, so there was other great writers, other artists that were also contributing on that, Jacob Bunton from Lynham and Neon Coven, and he also plays with Mick Mars. He's a great writer. I mean, he's written so many things, and an incredible writer. And he wrote most of. He had a lot of influence, not most of, but he was like the outside writer that had the most songs that were that Quiet Riot included on Hollywood Cowboys. And there's also another singer, I'm trying to remember, and he does like the Zeppelin tribute band that he was doing with Frankie Banali. And he's a great singer. And he did a blues song on the album, which was phenomenal. So Quiet Riot, they kind of stretched out. They went in a direction where they covered more ground. They did some things that maybe people might not have expected them to do, you know, outside of the box. And I think that's great for an artist to do that. I mean, it's exciting. It's cool. It's like, wow. And great work, you know, great writing. And so what I was brought in for, not surprisingly, was, you know, they wanted to do some heavy stuff, right? So they brought me in to, you know, co-write and collaborate on some heavier type of songs. Except that for Quiet Riot, the heavier songs were not, you know, in a sense like Anthrax. They weren't like in the sense of DeathRiders or, you know, Neil Turbin, Islos, which are my bands. But it was more so in a sense of Quiet Riot going heavy in their voice. Of course, at the time, James Durbin was the singer, so it was writing songs that James Durbin was going to sing. It wasn't for me to sing. So I demoed these songs, and I came up with this one song. At first, I started writing the faster song, which I thought was going to be easier, but it wasn't. And then I started writing on the mid-tempo song, which is Change or Die, and that's a heavy one on the Hollywood Cowboys album on Frontiers Records. And so I wrote to that song, and that one just came together. You know, look in my eyes, stare into the fire. You know, I mean, it just kept going from there, and I just felt that one come together, and it was one of those kind of songs that just boom, it just formulated. You know, and I was able to write to it, and it came out, and I recorded it, and it was, you know, Frankie said, I said, how much time do I have, Frankie? He said, well, I need it right away. I'm like, well, can I have at least a week, please? Yeah, and I mean, to write it and to try to sing it and record it. So, yeah, so I got him that one. And I was surprised because, you know, I had asked Frankie, I said, well, I was just wondering, you know, is there paperwork, or is there, like, am I going to sign? So he sent me an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. And I signed that, of course. And I just asked him on that, as, you know, it wasn't like he just had it was like a boilerplate one. It wasn't like an attorney did a lot of custom work on it. So I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, well, is there royalties? Is there, you know, I'm writing a song. It's just, you know, kind of the questions you want to just know, like just to be informed, like what you're getting yourself into. Like, hey, it's Quiet Riot. You know, I was happy to do it, but I just wanted to ask, like, you know. So I don't know if he didn't quite take it the same way that I meant it, and he got a little bit upset with the fact that I even asked him. So I was like, oh man, you know, so I'm just like trying to say, hey, Frankie, man, I love you, Frankie. You know, we've known each other. We did the Cooney album in 1986. I mean, I've known him since I came out to LA. So, and nothing but the utmost respect for the Quiet Riot legacy and for Frankie Banali and for all of Quiet Riot. And just to appreciate, you know, number one with a bullet, you know, Bang Your Head, Metal Health. I mean, the first heavy metal band, I mean, how do you even top that, you know, in Billboard, like biggest band of the world at one time, and definitely in heavy metal, and certainly a legacy artist. So for me, it was like, you know, the pressure was on. I'm just trying to ask the, you know, trepidatiously the questions, be tiptoe through the tulips, like what, you know, like business questions, like, you know, like, hey, Jack, you're starting this new opportunity with this new broadcasting company. And it's like, well, they didn't even talk about, like, are you going to get paid, or are you just doing this for fun? I mean, what, like, at least tell me something, give me an idea. So I didn't, you know, there was no comfortable way to ask. So I did. And anyway, we got past that. So that was good. And once we got to once I got up back onto the deck from being underneath the deck, I was now standing up like where everybody else was. It's like, okay, well, now I'm back here, and now we're back to a normal place. And so I delivered the first song, and Frankie loved the song. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I'm actually going to have a song that will probably be on a Quiet Riot album. So I'm like, okay, this is really fantastic. So And it's like, hey, Neil, what about that second song? So I delivered the second song. And the second song was more tongue-in-cheek. It was more like Sunset Strip lyrics, like you got the, the Rats and the Motley Crues and the Dawkins and the Great Whites and all the Sunset Strip bands from back in the day. That Quiet Riot was a Sunset Strip band, or Starwood band, really, even before the Sunset Strip was even a thing in the 80s. They were predecessors to all that. They were 70s, really, with Randy Rhoads and Rudy Sarzo. So, ironically, Frankie says to me, he listens to the tongue-in-cheek lyrics on that song, kind of a cliche, like Poison or something. And it's like, Neil, you can do better than that. I guess it was a nice way of saying, I hate it. I don't want to hear this. Do something better than that. That sucked, man. But he didn't say that, but I said it. But I got the idea. I got the gist of it. And it's like, yeah, Frankie, you're right. And I know I could do better too. It's just, that's what was the first thing that came out. So what I had to do is I had to rewrite the melodies and the lyrics completely, like totally rewrite it. And it was not an easy thing to do because they were talking about, I didn't even write this song to begin with. Here's like a fixed song. And it kind of looped around. The drumming on it was heavy, but it was Zeppelin-esque. And it kind of was hard to write to. But then I had this experience with this cover band that I was trying to, work on being involved with. And they weren't being very kind. And it's just the way that band was. And, I was an outsider. Not an unfamiliar story, right? This is just, when you got a group of people and they have their own club, and you're trying to fit into that club, it's up to the other people to let you in the club. It's not just up to you, right? It's up to the majority of the people. And then, it's up to you to be cool and to be respectful and have consideration. But also, if you're not allowed in the club, then you don't get in the club. It's not really your choice at that point. So anyway, that's kind of the scenario without getting further into that part. And what happened is, it was not a happy situation. So I was driving out to some conference or trade show out in out towards the desert, towards Palm Springs. So I'm out there, and it's a long drive for me, a couple of hours or so. So I had a lot of time to sit with this song and come up with a different idea. And of course, I had these ideas coming from thinking of that band. And I'm like, wow, I got some, living the life of insanity. You're pushing me over the edge, can't you see? It turned away from a tongue-in-cheek, sexy rocker chick song into a, much more gritty, hard as nails type of a song. So that's the song Insanity on the Quiet Riot Hollywood Cowboys album, Change or Die. So I was thrilled when I got the call from Frankie, and he said, you know what, Neil, we really like the second song too. We're going to use that one too. By the way, do you have a photo? I'm like, yeah, Frankie, why? Well, please send me a photo that hasn't been used before. I'm like, okay. He says, yeah, we're putting your photo on the album. I'm like, really? On a Quiet Riot album? I mean, that's pretty damn cool. Like, I never would have expected that in a million years, honestly. I mean, the guy from Anthrax is working with Quiet Riot. I mean, I'm not the lead singer or anything, but hey, just, my songs and co-writing and having some backup vocals. And then Frankie said, after I sent the photo, another few days goes by. Hey, Neil, do you have those tracks that you sang on for the demo? I said, sure, Frankie. Why you want me to send you all the tracks? He said, yeah, send me all your tracks. So I sent him the tracks, and they used all my backup vocals on the James Turbin lead vocal songs, which were Change or Die and Insanity on Hollywood Cowboys. So I was just, blown away, and I was just thrilled that, Frankie, saw that in me, that I was a writer. He wasn't really just approaching me as a singer. And we had a chance to play some Youth Thrall songs together at the big jam in Hollywood, Ultimate Jam Night. So that was really an honor for me as well. But just to have that consideration as a songwriter, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool that he would recognize that. And, you got to give it to Frankie because, this is a guy who knows his stuff. He's been around, it's not just about drums. It's about, running a band and producing and, writing songs and making these judgments about, what's going to be right for the band. And they went out and got outside writers for that album. And personally, I think there's some really phenomenal music on there and people should give it a chance because it's, I know singers change in bands, but it's like pretty cool stuff. And some of the other songs that I didn't write are very cool on that album. So it's pretty eclectic for Quiet Riot, and it's, you know, I would say Frankie went out with a real bang. It's a shame that he passed, but it's you know, certainly a, you know, a great legacy that he left. And you know, going out with an album like that, to me, it's like, you know, that's you know, he was creating stuff. You know, he's still creating new, you know, blazing new trails for Quiet Riot. I was excited about that album.
That's great. Yeah, and congrats for being part of it. That's cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into the Riot, but I got into the Quiet Riot, at least a little bit. You know, I wouldn't like to have gotten into Riot because I could have sang those songs, but you know, hey, it is what it is, and you do what you can do. You know, that's it. You have to keep on pushing, and you know, you have to aspire to the next level. And one day maybe you can get there, and that's what we got to keep doing.
Yeah, well said. All right. Well, and I know you also worked. Quiet Riot was not the only big guest appearance you made recently, or guest collaboration you did. I know you had another big one. I won't give it away. It was through Cleopatra Records.
Yes,
if you want to touch on
know,
that.
I know which one you're talking about. And I'm gonna touch on that, but I just wanted to also mention that in 2019, just before, you know, things went sideways for the world as we know it, I had some really great collaborations, and I was asked to sing with a number of really amazing artists, and I just wanted to mention them real quick, and then mention the album that you're alluding to.
Sure.
I just wanted to include these others because I think, you know, it's very significant. So
Yeah.
the first one on the list was Blaze Bayley, who contacted me to sing with him at the Whiskey when he played in Los Angeles in 2019, in May of 2019. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And I already played that year with Michelangelo Badio at NAMM. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing to have the opportunity to sing with, you know, singer from one of my favorite bands, Iron Maiden. And you know, I think Blaze is a phenomenal artist. I love what he did in his time with Iron Maiden. And as a person, he's just, you know, you couldn't have there's not a better guy than Blaze Bayley. I mean, he's just that good of a person. A brilliant man, a brilliant businessman, really amazing with his fans, incredible. I mean, you know, every bit a mensch and someone that's just top level with his fans. And I was just like, that really was so amazing. And I have to thank Jimmy K from the Metal Voice, because it wouldn't have happened if, you know, I hadn't have met Blaze through Jimmy. And of course, Jimmy's been very kind to me and given me opportunities. So I really appreciate that. So more than anything, I mean, when people give you a chance, there's a lot of people in this world that don't give you a chance. So it's amazing to have someone that actually gives you a chance. And that's Jimmy K and the Metal Voice. Mm-hmm. And Blaze Bayley too, you know, and then Hammerfall, actually, I was approached by, I mean, I've been friends with the Hammerfall guys for quite some time, but you know, I was interviewing them. I was, you know, I was going to their shows. I was hanging out with them. I was checking it out. And what happened is Joachim Kahns, he hit me up and he said, Neil, and it was like a week before their show in LA. And he says, Neil, would you like to sing with us? I'm like, sure. Who wouldn't? You know, it's Hammerfall.
Yeah, they're great. They're one of my favorite of the, you know, the late 90s, 2000s emergence of those power metal bands. They're great.
Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of Hammerfall from like, gosh, what is it, 93, 94 or whatever, even before then. It's like, I knew
actually, it was a little later. They're around 97, 98, I want to say.
Really? I thought it was 94. Well, yeah. Anders Johansson was in the band. So as soon as he was in the band, as soon as I knew that was like a formation after he left Yngwie. So to me, I was just blown away that I was, you know, that we were having this conversation even. And I'm like, I just said to Joachim, I said, Joachim, why do you need me to sing? You guys already have a great singer. You don't need me. Like, you already got it handled. And what's cool is that he said, well, no, you don't understand. I want you to sing, and I'm going to watch. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. So I ended up singing at the Whiskey again with Hammerfall, like a few months later. And this is Hector's Hymn, and singing with Hammerfall. And it was like, wow. I mean, I've seen them play some tremendous shows. I mean, I played a show with Hammerfall in Mexico with Motorhead. And we nearly died on the airplane. You know, Lemmy and DeathRiders and Danzig's band, and you know, other bands were on that as well. So it's like, you know, Johnny Kelly was on that plane. So yeah, it wasn't a very fun flight to Monterey, but that's a whole nother story. I'll try to stay on this one. So yeah, so it was just what an experience, you know, to get on stage with Hammerfall and, you know, hammers high to the sky, you know, hammer high to the sky, you know, singing Hector's Hymn.
Yeah, they're great. I was like,
having Joachim watch me, I would have much rather had him sing it with me or sing it with him, really, because it's his song. But that was such an incredible experience. And, you know, if that wasn't uplifting enough, like the next day or two, then I get a call before that, and I knew I was asked to sing with Steve Grimmett. Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper. So Steve had me sing with him.
Nice.
So that was already scheduled. So it was like back-to-back dates. Hammerfall, then Grim Reaper at the Whiskies. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know.
That's cool.
Like maybe the Whiskies should book my band once in a while, because I'm singing with all the other bands that are filling up the place. But anyway, so then I did a show later in the year with Whiplash, Toxic, and Neil Turbin Eastlos. And we did that in Long Beach. And, you know, again, Tony Portaro from Whiplash, he asked me to come and sing with Whiplash. And that was so excellent and such an awesome thing. And, you know, we had done shows over in Europe before, you know, in Germany and some festivals. And I just thought, hey, this is phenomenal. Look at the year I'm having, 2019. So singing with all these folks. And then this brings me to a Canadian artist that I wanted to mention, and that was, and I hope I'm not leaving someone out, because I hate to do that. Like, I'm mentioning these guys, and I don't want to leave anybody out. But another great, amazing artist that I sang with was Thor. So the mighty Thor from the Great White North, you know,
Yeah, knock them down. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, I saw Thor before I was in Anthrax. I went, after the band that I was in, Amra, I went to see the guys that were in that band. The same band opened up for Thor at this venue in Farmingdale, Long Island. So I was there, and there was Thor in the audience, and he was hanging out. And I'm like, I was just there to see the band that I'm not in anymore. And then I'm like seeing him and his wife and all that. And it's like, you know, a whole theatrical thing, and a whole, you know, water bottles getting blown up and steel getting bent with his teeth and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, that's in 1982, something like that. So I'm just like coming full circle around, singing with Thor. And then I get a call last year, and it's like, you know, John Michael Thor hits me up, and then I'm working with Kevin Stewart Swain, who's his lead, you know, one of his songwriters and producers, and also a bandmate. And working with him and writing working on a song. I actually sang on a song that's on the new release that's going to be coming out through Cleopatra Records for Thor. And we did a song together called We Fight Forever. And that's all I'm going to say about that release, because it's really up to, you know, Thor and Cleopatra Records to talk about that release. But I'm excited for them, and it's a great sounding album. I know there's some amazing songs and amazing collaborations. I think it's something to definitely look out for. And I think it's coming out. I think it's going to probably come out in 2021, but I'm not going to, you know, it's not for me to provide release dates or album information or try, you know, who's on it and all that. But I just wanted to share that I know I'm working with Thor on a song, and I was really excited to do that. And I was really surprised. It's like, again, Thor, you sing great. What do you need a singer for? Like, he wanted to collaborate with me or something. So I'm like, okay, cool. This is amazing. And what a great guy too. You know, like I was saying, how Blaze was. I mean, Thor is also John Michael Thor, wonderful human being. You know, just a really good person, treats people right. You know, good good business person, very creative, and very, and he comes from the wrestling side of things, not the wrestling, bodybuilding. So, a competitive spirit and someone who really, understood, really got the image thing down early on. The history of Thor, breaking through over in the UK and worldwide and Sweden and other places in the Nordic markets. And just for me to, for him to include me, for these artists to include me, it's just like, wow, I'm blown away by that. Now to be included with, to write a song with the guys from the Heartbreakers. I mean, wow, that's just another dimension really for me.
And is there anything going on with your band DeathRiders?
Absolutely, yes. I've got a video that I did with Matt Thompson and Jonas Hornquist and Richard Svord and Andy LaRock in his studio and over in Varberg, Sweden. And we're probably I'm expecting that we're going to probably release a video from DeathRiders since we have that. And we have a couple more that are
very cool
in process, but there's recording that still needs to get completed on a number of things, but that is still something that is hot in the cooker. And then I also wanted to mention Bleed the Hunger too, because that's a classic hard rock band that I also have with Jonas Hornquist. Now, of course, we know geographically, he's over in Sweden, and ever since this epidemic that's been globally initiated upon everyone, I feel that it certainly has caused limitations for people, and geographically speaking. So we've kind of been forced, in a sense, globally to have to retreat into our man caves or studios to go and get with the other dinosaurs and start making some stone hammers and things. So we're just we're back working hard on stuff like that. And I'm excited that there at least is a little bit of live music that looks like it's starting to slowly get out there, and hopefully things can go well for everybody and everyone stays healthy and happy. And what is a world without music and without the arts, without theater, without art exhibits, without people gathering, with people not wearing a Halloween costume every day. I think it's great that people can be out there and communicate and be human beings again. I mean, because being locked inside and not communicating properly and not having any face-to-face interaction, I don't think that's a very good thing. So I think live music depends on this interaction. Doing it on a computer screen, it's cool and it's convenient, but it's not that convenient for the artist. I don't think. It's kind of it's got its challenges, it's got its technology challenges, and I think people are passé about it. It's like, yeah, you're going to be on a computer. That's nice. I can turn it on when I have time, and when I don't have time, and I'll just download you and save you and turn you on in 3 months from now. It's like the concert's happening tonight. Either you go to it or you don't go to it. I mean, that's kind of how a live show seems to be. But a live streaming show seems a bit different. But I think it's great, and there seems to be a greater acceptance. And I think it's causing technology to further come along, like applications like Jam Kazam to further come along for, live band practice or live band performances, because there's nothing more artificial than one person recording their performance at home and then editing it to another person playing their drum performance and then editing the bass performance. It's nice when you have people in the same environment, even if it's online. And I was able to do that with my band Screamin' Soul Demon. So we did some, radio live performances, and we've, done that on a video level as well as online, for the radio, even in a video capacity. So what's cool about that is I came together with a friend of mine, Eric Stone, who's a bass player for a band called Shovelhead they're out of Florida, Southern Florida. And, very successful cover band over there in that whole area up and down the coast. And recently Patrick Johansson from Yngwie Malmsteen and Wasp, he joined Shovelhead to play shows and fill in when their drummer left or was unable to play. And we were already playing with Patrick. You know, Patrick was already part of Screaming Soul Demon, contributing tracks to what we were doing. And then I also had Jeff Besseril, who was over in Mexico City, who's a keyboard player. So we're kind of spread out also, kind of like some of my other bands. And guitar player Nate Montalvo, who's an amazing guitar player out of Savannah, Georgia, who was also playing with us in Screaming Soul Demon. So that's something that I also like to move forward, you know, with my rock and soul music. And that's really, you know, original songs, but also revisiting some legacy standards, some classic standards. You know, we're talking, when we say that, we mean like, you know, songs that would be by Nina Simone, or songs by Otis Redding, or songs that are those kind of artists, as well as modern pop soul, but good songwriting, you know, not just like, hey, this is some pop artist that's crap. No, really good, amazing songwriting, and taking those songs and doing it my way and kind of bringing something to my own interpretation of that. You know, it's not my way, but my interpretation of their song. You know, people like Chris Stapleton, but not just the regular stuff, you know, and not necessarily deep cuts, but songs that really could have been delivered a different way. And so with me, you know, you can do things in a conventional way and have the very nice guitars and everything is like on the downbeat on the guitar. I kind of approach it, you know, I'm still the guy from Anthrax, so I still kind of, you know, put a little bit of fistful of soul in there. So I got to kind of push it a little bit, you know, do something to it. But it's fun, and the delivery and just the whole thing. It's, you know, so it's really rewarding to have, you know, these different types of music that, you know, it's not just a one,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not just being isolated into a single, you know, tunnel vision. It's like having a broad scope and being adaptable to these different areas. And I think it really adds value to the thrash music because, you know, I'm writing songs with my band right now, Neil Turbin Eastlos. We're also doing that. So we're going to be recording Fistful of Metal Alive, which is the Fistful and Armed and Spreading songs that I was a part of, that I co-wrote. And also even maybe some bonus stuff, maybe a demo or maybe a thing here or there. So we're, you know, whatever will fit on a CD, right? Because you're limited.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we're working on that as well. But we're also working on new songs, you know, to represent Neil Turbin Eastlos. And that's, you know, the boys from East Los Angeles, because that's where we rehearse. That's where some of the guys are from. That's where we all meet. And that's kind of what we are. So that's why we call it Neil Turbin Eastlos. And
Cool.
The cool thing about it is that, you know, we're incorporating things like cumbia, flamenco. I mean, it's not what you might think. You know, we're not doing charo music, but we are doing things that, you know, have a certain flavor and it has a certain, you know, angle, and it just brings something fresh. You know, it's like hearing the same old stuff regurgitated. You know, there's already been the Ramones, you know, and I grew up seeing the Ramones. So for a band to come and copy them, that would be a copycat, right? We don't need a second Ramones, but taking elements of the Ramones, that'd be okay, you know, because that's a great band. And taking elements of, you know, the Sex Pistols or, you know, other bands that are, you know, Generation X. I mean, I think this is all an excellent thing to do. You know, you have your influences, elements of Dio, you know, these are influences. So I think that's really where it's at. And yeah, I'm excited because there's a lot of music to do, a lot of musical work that I need to get busy, you know, busier with that. And, you know, it's great when things can be symbiotic and just, you know, kind of flow really. The energy flow is very, you know, in a direction versus chaotic. So I'm hoping to have more of that and less chaos, and less chaos in the world, more peace and harmony in the world, I think, for everybody, and for the music business and for people in the heavy metal and hard rock world, because, you know, we've had a disruption to our world, and to not have a NAMM show, to not have bands playing live. You know, this is something that seriously affects people's well-being. It seriously affects, you know, the existence of bands, venues, of art and artists. And, you know, I think realistically, I would just say that we've been under attack as a heavy metal community, you know, really, from this whole thing.
Yeah, it's been brutal, but you know, we're at time, so you know, I'm sorry. I know there are a million more stories to tell. We'll have to have you back on again. You know, it's seriously an honor. One of Metal's great voices. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much thanks for watching out there, and thank you so much, Neil Turbin. You know, I want to hear. I'm looking forward to all the projects you're talking about. But yeah, I'll shut up and let you guys kind of take us out. But yeah, like I said, we're at time here. But yeah.
Thanks.
And I just want to thank you. I just wanted to say a shout out to Pat Gesualdo in the Metal Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And it was an honor for me to receive this award from the Metal Hall of Fame and to be inducted. And, you know, something I'll cherish and appreciate always. And I think it's a great thing that there is a Metal Hall of Fame because, like I said earlier, you know, the Rock Hall is, you know, leaves a lot of questions, like about a lot of bands, and yeah, so it's really cool to have that opportunity, and you know, I really support, you know, the Metal Hall of Fame inducting, you know, more of these great artists. I mean, I'm honored that they included me. I'm sure King Diamond should be high up on that list, and there's some other bands, hopefully, that, you know, push them in there.
Well, definitely worthy. Absolutely. But no, it's great.
Yeah. And I just really appreciate, you know, Jack and Rich, you guys taking the time to speak with me. I hope everything's okay in your side of the world there, Jack, and you too, Rich. And
thanks.
You know, everybody just keep on pushing, keep on hanging in there, and keep on supporting heavy music and all art, you know, because all art needs to be seen and heard, because without art, it's a pretty colorless world. It's a pretty, you know, art is beautiful, and to take the beauty out of the world, it's like taking the flowers out of the world, you know, and we need the art, and we need the heavy music, and there's lots of different types of heavy music, and, you know, I support all of it. Some I like more than others. But you know, we need it in our lives. So thank you so much, gentlemen.
All right, thank you out there for watching. All right, I'm gonna stop